Hey everybody, if you're seeing this channel for the very first time, welcome. But if you've been here before, you know that I always try to toe that line between enjoying and complimenting the team for 3 points, well deserved and well won. And I also know that this match and all those headlines and all the big ideas from this match are going to be about the minutes before the goal, which came at the very end to secure those 3 points. Are we disappointed by the entire totality of this match, sans the goal? Indeed we are, and many of the headlines are going to be about that. But I also want to say at the start of this that this could have gone a lot worse. 1 point would have been bad. 0 points, obviously, would have been a worst case scenario on the road against the bottom of the league, Alaves. But to get the 3 points, to get out unscathed, and to head into the international break with a lot of things for Xavi to do. He's got a lot on it to do this, but at least he can do it, having 3 points secured. All right, let's get into the headlines. One, and this is before we get into any of the complaining, is that De Jong was rewarded for his hard work tonight. We could talk about the old guard again. People question if he had picked up a knock. And after his performance against Atletico, why was Jordi Alba starting again? It clearly shows you the confidence that Xavi has in the rest of his squad. And by rest of the squad, I mean players in the B team like Balde, who Xavi would rather just put out Jordi Alba again there. And Alba even sounded off after that match, saying he accepts the responsibility of doing poorly against Atletico Madrid, but he actually feels hard done by. Like, he doesn't get the love and support he deserves when he played well. And tonight he played okay. It was 50-50. Busquets, it was 50-50. Piqué, it was 50-50. But because those three were continuing to be on the field and will continue to be on this field until further notice, it's hard to know what this team would look like without them. So we're just left trying to figure out the solutions when you have those players playing every single minute after minute after minute. And a lot of those questions actually fall upon Frenkie de Jong, who winds up scoring the game winner after a long and tedious match for de Jong. It felt like for so much of it, he was just running for nothing. He was the only one trying to make those runs from the midfield to the back line of Alaves. And I'm really happy to see that he was finally given that opportunity to score late, and I hope that that's a confidence booster for him. I have major questions about him as that midfielder, especially when Alaves is playing like this, where, yeah, his runs in behind are the thing that Barca need in that moment, but it certainly does not give you the best of Frenkie de Jong. The best move of that entire game happened, I think it was somewhere in the first half or maybe at the beginning of the second half. He picks up the ball on the left side, and then he was able just to kind of dribble through traffic. And once Frenkie de Jong got through and was dribbling, because Busquets is always going to be just behind him to his right, prepared for de Jong to lose the ball, there was no midfielder making that run into the space that de Jong had created by bringing that second midfielder over. So it wound up being de Jong stalling, looking around to his options right behind him in Alba on the flank, and then trying to look for that diagonal ball as well. There needed to be a vertical ball at that spot, not a horizontal ball, which continued to be a problem for Barcelona all night long. That said, de Jong, he was my man of the match. Pedri, and try to understand this one, Pedri was the best player for Barca tonight, but de Jong was the man of the match. I know that's confusing. You can dispute that in the comments below, but that's Pedri and de Jong. They were the standouts from this one. 2 is narrow Alaves is equal to boring football. This one is taken from the ideas that I've already put forth in that first headline tonight, that Alaves, by playing so narrow, was forcing Barcelona to take those long, diagonal, horizontal balls. Not enough verticality from Barca on the night. Either within the runs that were not being made, I mean, how many near-post runs could you even count from this match? As well as the movement. Luuk de Jong, in this instance, when he's playing against that narrow, low block, he doesn't really have a technical ability to hold the ball up long enough for those wingers to get in behind, nor does he have the speed to run onto a through ball. So his weaknesses are exposed in this kind of match against Alaves. And going back to that old guard thing, it's not that Busquets did anything wrong in this game per se, but it was that because there wasn't more dynamism from the 3 midfielders, where Pedri and de Jong, Busquets, they kept getting separated so much, where Alaves, they kept everything narrow, compact, saying, hey, as ABDE, who we'll get to in a second, and DEST, they're not going to beat us. Ferran Torres, who started sparkling in this match for the first 15 minutes, certainly did fade. And a reminder that 165 minutes that he has played in the last week is more football than he's played in the last 4 months. So I'm not surprised that Ferran Torres faded from this match and might not have his full match fitness. It wasn't even a low block that Alaves was even playing, with 5 men like it was the last time. It was a narrow 4-4-2 with some soft pressure at the point of the attack and a beehive in midfield around de Jong and Busquets in particular. But Barca were far too slow, as I said, and can't move the block to create gaps. Too many diagonals with long travel time and key players receiving with no superiority established beforehand. Barca could very well have, with 76% possession, could have lost this match. There were a number of chances for Alaves, who actually could have felt a bit hard done by that they didn't put one of those in the back of the net. So Barcelona, yeah, it was boring, and sometimes boring is even more frustrating than losing for Culés, I think. So I know that the comments here, even in a 1-0 win, might be as inflammatory as they would be if Barca had even drawn 0-0 or had lost 1-0. I feel like the 1-0 win gets Kool-Aid just as frustrated because of the way that it took place. It's a way that doesn't really offer much hope going forward. And that's going to be something that Xavi's going to have to figure out in the next 2 weeks. Is when teams pack it in like this, how can you add more verticality to this team that isn't on the feet of Pedri? Because Ansu Fati is probably gone for the year. And as I had said many times for many months, I've been waiting, was hoping that Ansu Fati was going to be one of the answers to do that. And losing Ousmane Dembele, who is just a straight shot down one of those flanks, it's more questions for Xavi to answer. 3, waiting on ABDE, because Xavi could answer one of those questions through as ABDE, but unfortunately, the 20-year-old just doesn't look ready just yet. And I know people in the comments are going to say, and I know a lot of responses from Kool-Aid are going to be, this guy isn't it. What's he doing in the first team? It doesn't make sense. And I think there's a little kernel. I don't want to give the trolls any credibility, but I think there's a kernel that he's not ready for the first team yet, which doesn't mean he won't always be ready for the first team. He is a professional move. He's got that one dribble skill move where he can either cut in, well, he does both. He can cut in, and I think once opponents have figured out that if you bring that extra man, and they're even timing that extra man of help so that ABDE can't get around and to the goal line, it looks like opposition have figured it out once they saw his one trick. Now ABDE has to figure out how to evolve, how to grow, how to be more than just that one trick, and how to use that one trick to create space for others. He started on the left, and then it looked like Martin Braithwaite, about the 15th, 20th minute, started warming up. So Xavi was not happy with what he was seeing, but instead of putting on Braithwaite, Xavi instead moved ABDE over to the right side to work with DEST. And that could have been because he either wanted to see Ferran Torres, who was doing well cutting in, and Jordi Alba. Maybe that overlap made a little more sense, because we know with Alba pushing forward, we even saw it with Neymar, that it wasn't necessarily a perfect recipe when you have one of those wingers who's going to stay wide on the left side, and then Alba in behind. You have to create space for Jordi Alba to go high on the left. And so by moving ABDE over to the right, they put DEST, that being Xavi, put DEST a bit farther back, and we'll get to DEST in a second, but you put DEST farther back, have him just have the job of defending, and let ABDE, I guess, go to work. So while that right side, however, with ABDE and DEST basically became ineffective at that point in the first, when that switch happened, but it did keep ABDE on the field. And it's unfortunate for ABDE because this performance was poor, yes, but it's not a poor performance that you could kind of shake off and say, hey, Dembele is going to be returning, Ansu Fati is going to be returning. No, there is no cavalry coming on the wing. The other options are Ilaix Comas, who did score a wonder goal yesterday for Barça B, but he truly is not ready for the first team. You could see that he needs more seasoning on the defensive end, especially with Barça B, so he's certainly not ready. ABDE at least does defensively enough of the job to be featured in the first team, but he's being asked to do a lot of hard work on that right wing and being asked to change games, and he's not ready to do that yet, unfortunately. But Kool-Aid, please, with ABDE, just try to be patient. He may not be ready this year, but it might become good down the road. And 4, a chance for DEST. Speaking of being patient, you know, if you've followed this channel for any bit of time, you know where I've been on DEST. Not to say that I've fully put all support behind him, but he clearly looks like a lost player. And is he a player that's going to be lost at Barcelona and found by Xavi through training, through time, through repetitions, and through getting his fitness back and finally being put back in the team? Because I'm a little frustrated here. DEST was poor tonight, sure, but the entire team was poor. And this is one of those things where to go with that old guard. Now we know, institutionally, I know people in the comments are going to think you're reinventing the wheel by saying that Piqué and Busquets and Alba need to get out of the team. Well, they're not. That's the reality. They're not going to be out of the starting lineup. Those three are going to be in the team this year. For DEST, however, this is the kind of performance, as those who criticize how I've talked about Riqui Puig before, this is one of those performances where Xavi might look at it and say, hey, DEST, you had your chance. This was your chance. This was your tryout. We're back to Dani Alves. He's going to be the starter. And DEST, you're just going to have to figure things out in training, and we'll talk again in the summertime when maybe you're going to be leaving the club. And that's unfortunate because DEST was poor. I actually thought he was better to start the match while working with Ferran Torres. It seems like he had no confidence, where he was always looking to pass back. He didn't really have that feeling that he was going to have support when he got forward, and even when he did, it seems like Alaves had his number. For DEST, I hope that he's going to continue to be given some opportunities this year. Now, without Copa del Rey and those additional matches, I don't really know when we're going to see Serginho DEST. We've now seen him in the last week as a left winger and as a right back who was playing 2 matches in the same week. This was certainly just to rest Alves and give him some time to recuperate, and then the international break was coming as well. So for DEST, I hope this is more than a tryout and he does get some more opportunities. And the most frustrating part is that this might be the one and only opportunity for DEST. I hope he gets more opportunities, but if he's going to continue to play poorly, it's hard to argue for him. And 5 is Supercopa for the FEMENI. Sometimes, as I say, it feels like the men's first team reviews need 20 headlines. And then there are days like today where I barely got 4. So we're going to end with the final headline, and it's not all. Today wasn't all bad in the FC Barcelona universe. The Supercopa for the FEMENI, avenging a loss for Atletico Madrid from last season. the only real important match that they did lose last season, the only trophy that slipped out of their grasp. So 7-0. Caroline Graham-Hansen was fantastic in this match. Woman of the match, easily. Just amazing. Sensational. Barça, you've heard the story before, just leagues above their opposition. But the moment of this match actually came at the end, and is that heartwarming thing that the FEMENI somehow, yes, they're dominant on the field, but they also seem to have a heart. They also seem to care about football and care about the people playing that football. I think the image, something that happened again, I said afterwards, Virginia Torresia, after 683 days of waiting, makes her return to the field after a battle with cancer, winning that battle, and finally making her return as a substitute player for Atletico Madrid. And that image of the Barça FEMENI just hoisting her up in the air, yes, they're champions with that trophy, but they're also champions with their sportsmanship. It's what we like to see, trophies and goodness coming from that Barça FEMENI. So, hurrah for them, and I guess, yeah, hurrah for 3 points for the men's first team as well. I'm not going to take much of a break. I've got some content that is planned over the international break, including, I've been thinking about Sergio Busquets more than you have. I promise. I've really been thinking about this. I've got a piece of content coming out on him this week, so make sure that if you want to see that, subscribe to this channel as we continue to push towards 10,000. And thanks to everyone who's already subscribed. And as always, you know what it is. Until next time, Forza Barça.